So, Natalie, give us some example of how liberal your school is.
Okay, so the school's been for 25 years and they've never had a conservative speaker, but every single year they'd bring in multiple super left-leaning speakers, not even just like Democrat or liberal, like legitimate communists, like people who had histories of running for office with the Communist Party who would advocate for open borders, quote, no America first, really crazy, really anti-American platforms, and the conservative voice was just absent.
Do they have Black Lives Matter on your campus?
No, there is a club, though, like there's a kind of black identity club, basically. They're called affinity groups, isn't that?
That's what we call them.
Yeah.
It's BLACC.
And then
Black Leadership and Culture Club.
Do they have it for white kids too?
Well, there was a
White lives don't matter, huh? It's terrible.
Done.
I hate it when I see
well,
that.
and it's like
I want to slap white people for doing that.
I think a lot of people that think, oh, if I capitulate, they'll be nice to me. But
Yeah.
it's weakness ultimately.
That's right. 100%.
And if you show weakness, then people will say, you know, oh, I can get whatever I want out of this person.
Yeah.
This person will.
That's right.
Will give me whatever
And
I
that's
want.
what white people have done for the last however many 60 years. They have shown weakness, and that's why generation after generation after generation keep pushing them and intimidating them and accusing them, and it's not going to change until white folks stand up and say no more. That's your problem.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Culture War. Wow, this is a very interesting installment of Culture War. In here, Jesse interviewed two teenagers. These teenagers are very articulate politically, and they revealed something to Jesse that made Jesse clap, made Jesse angry at white people. Guys, you need to watch this for yourself. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you've not, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. So without further ado, as usual, let's dive in.
Welcome to the Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. I'm talking with two members of Generation Z about political correctness gone crazy in our schools. Natalie is 16. She's a junior in high school. Aiden is 19 and is a freshman in college. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah.
You guys look so young. I don't know if I could be that young and be involved in politics or anything, especially today when it's being so nasty and mean. You guys both are from one of the most prestigious high school in the country. Is that right?
I think so. I think it's like number 3 in the nation. So.
Really? And what makes it so prestigious?
I think the kind of kids that come there, they're really motivated, and they take kids with the best test scores.
Oh, so you don't have any blacks and Hispanics anymore?
Actually, they have quite a lot.
It's a pretty. It is, I think, my whole educational experience, really since elementary school on, has been pretty diverse generally.
Really?
So I've never. That's kind of just been the environment that I've been used to my whole life, honestly.
And this school is also very liberal, is that right?
Yeah.
Extremely
Yes.
liberal.
I believe that we did a mock election, and I think it was 75% for Clinton, 15 for Trump, and then 10 for Jill Steiner or whatever.
Wow.
So not great numbers, to be honest.
So, Natalie, give us some example of how liberal your school is.
Okay, so the school's been for 25 years and they've never had a conservative speaker, but every single year they'd bring in multiple super left-leaning speakers, not even just like Democrat or liberal, like legitimate communists, like people who had histories of running for office with the Communist Party, who would advocate for open borders, quote, no America first, really crazy, really anti-American platforms, and the conservative voice was just absent. So I took it upon myself to try to change that. But there's a lot of teachers there that are super left-leaning that it's really hard to be conservative in a classroom there. I pretended to support Hillary during the election. We weren't allowed to watch Trump's inauguration.
Really?
They showed it in this like back room at the school that no one even knew where it was. We watched like Obama's and Bill Clinton's inauguration instead. And it's not even just isolated in my school. A lot of kids, even in like really red states, have the same experience. Even in Alabama and
Yeah.
Georgia, through their Texas, they all have the same experience in the classrooms, and they're really scared.
That's right. Yeah. So how did you become so brave?
I think that I was just kind of in the right time at the right place. My school has a new, basically, diversity initiative, so they hired a director of diversity, as well as kind of other positions in that realm. And I just thought it was really hypocritical for them to be bringing in positions and people whose goal was to enrich the school, culturally, but there was really a lack of diversity of thought, namely political thought.
Yeah.
So it was just too easy, to not go in there and say, hey, you guys have to have conservative speakers too. You guys need to present politics fairly and balanced in the classroom and not indoctrinate us anymore.
Yes.
And they've actually been surprisingly accommodating, I think partly because they went so far left that they were like, we gotta go right a little bit to make up for it.
So did you say on the day of the Great White Hope's inauguration that they were showing Hillary and Bill Clinton?
In one of my classes, yes.
Really?
Hmm.
And why?
I don't know.
Were there kids watching it?
Well, the teacher was crying as we watched those inaugurations. But again, that was that was one teacher. Most were like pretty chill, didn't say much. But, the day before the election, everyone came to school wearing Hillary hats.
And there were teachers a lot of teachers wore pantsuits on the day of the election to prepare themselves.
Not stylish, yeah.
That's amazing.
And the attitude, I remember coming into my first class on the day after the election, and it was the atmosphere. It was as if, a peer had just died the day before. And it really showed that at our school, if students thought of our immigration laws being enforced,
Yeah.
to them that's a catastrophe. That's that's on the level of a terrible natural disaster for us to simply say we have borders.
They sent out like a school-wide email
Yeah.
saying that they're there to support us and all these things. Did they create a safe space? I know that they did that for some terrible event, but it was crazy.
So Aiden, have you always been conservative?
Yeah, my family is pretty, we've always been right of center. But I've never really supported any of these kind of far left initiatives. But I don't think I understood until recently what a lot of left-leaning people in this country actually support, what they actually believe, and how extreme they are, and how dramatically they want to change the country.
Yeah. At one point, both of you were secretly conservative. What made you decide to come out, and what happened as a result?
I think the election, because I think for a lot of people, it gave us a kind of confidence.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, and that, if we can actually change this course, we can alter this course,
That's
and
right.
we can say these things and then win, the highest office in the country.
That's right.
So, and the reaction, Natalie saw this, I had, interactions with certain friends that, would actually, start screaming, hitting me.
Really?
Yeah.
They would literally hit you?
I've been physically assaulted before, without my consent. It's surprising because these are people that I thought were open-minded, but when I said something like, I think that there are certain cultures and ideas that I think, might not work fantastically with American culture, and they would explode.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so were you hit by boys or girls?
Girls.
Or both?
It was-
Girls.
it's-
So they were literally hit you in the face or where?
It's just, kind of like that type of thing. I've never been seriously injured, but I have seen and been shocked by the amount of anger and vitriol that some of these people.
So do you have any fear at all of coming out and speaking up now and just being who you are?
At this point, no.
Did you have fear, Natalie?
Kind
Natalie?
of. I think it's funny.
Yeah, yeah. And so did you have like close friends who did not know you were a conservative, and once you came out, they stopped being friends with you?
Kind of. Not really. More so. It's only the male feminists, those are the only people who are mean to me, who like talk down to me or like condescending towards me, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But other than that, for the most part, since I think a lot of kids at our school are pretty apolitical or just don't really care, you know, they just...
I think they go along with the general direction. I mean, I think for most of them, if our school was, for whatever reason, rabidly pro-Trump, I think a lot of these people would be. They don't, you know, they kind of move with whatever direction.
So are they liberal because of what the teachers are telling them or their parents are telling them? Why are they so liberal?
I think that the teachers,
Oh, okay.
I think we had some really radical teachers. You know, sometimes people use Marxist kind of as a slur word. They explicitly said, "I am a Marxist." They were out totally proud of it. So, and then these teachers had a platform too.
Yeah.
Dozens, hundreds of students.
Natalie, how did you and Aiden become friends?
Debate, right?
Yeah, through debate.
Yeah, which was very, very left-leaning.
Oh my God.
Well, because, you know, the whole speech community, because I first heard of you through the JSA
Oh, yeah.
debacle.
That was something else.
Yeah.
That was like amazing. The kids were crying and running into the bathrooms, and that was like, I did not expect that to happen in that way.
Yeah, and
That's like our school, kind of like that's what we deal with.
and you know,
okay.
when you do get into the kind of speech and debate, when you get into those communities or something like JSA, you get, you know, you're not, if you try to basically run a kind of conservative stance, you'll just lose. The judges will say, no, you lost the round because you aren't allowed to say that.
Wow.
And then, so that's, you know, a lot of times they won't even say you're wrong. They'll just say, you said that, you lose.
That's amazing. Natalie, I read that you were a guest on a podcast at your school, and there was an uproar.
To say the least. Yeah.
Tell us what happened.
So in brief, we kind of talked about like what we're talking about now, like political correctness, our school's new diversity initiative, and how that leaves conservatives behind.
Yeah.
And I went on, I maybe said a few controversial things, but objectively true. And there was like mass like outroar at school. Our school newspaper was writing articles saying that like we need to come together as a community to like educate the unaware.
Yeah, you got disavowed by the school newspaper.
They, on their like Twitter and on their Facebook, they wrote that what I said was hate speech.
Wow.
But then I marched into the principal's office and was like, no, that's not hate speech. So they changed it to offensive speech. And then they essentially, I guess you'd say, like, took me off the podcast, like basically censored me. It didn't allow me to go back on.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
And,
because I was supposed, Natalie and I were supposed to go on the podcast to debate, I think it was immigration, right?
Yeah, debate about immigration and other students.
And then I got to school that morning, and then only to find out that the podcast had been shut down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were no platformed essentially. I've noticed that a lot of times they will let you be a conservative, but only if you talk about taxation.
Yeah.
Only if you talk about the issues that, you know, I'm not saying taxation isn't important, but at the same time, like there are bigger issues at stake here, and they won't let you address those.
And so you guys were discussing, or you were discussing immigration at the time.
No, we were just talking more about political correctness
political
and
correctness.
specifically
In the
our
first
school.
podcast.
But the funniest part is, so after they took me off and I didn't go back on, if you see online the number of views they get, they continue to plummet, and now they get like 30 views a podcast, and mine got like over 2,000.
They need to bring you back.
That's what I told
So
them.
at the end of all this, when all this happened, you would be walking around campus. Were people trying to attack you, or how were you treated?
Definitely not physical attacks like
Right.
Aiden, but I got looks, I got stares, not just from students, but from teachers, from deans. So that kind of was absurd to me. It's mind-boggling how people that, my parents were paying their tuition, their salaries, they're like looking at me like that. But it wasn't too bad. But then they had a debate a couple weeks after, and we talked about feminism and political correctness. And that was actually a really cool experience. We had like overflow capacity in the theaters. That was over like 1,000 kids coming to listen to me and one of my conservative friends debate two people who were really, really on the left. So I thought that was cool to see a school that really didn't talk about politics, and when they did, it was like legit Marxism, to then having an even-handed, two-sided debate.
Do they have Black Lives Matter on your campus?
No, there is a club though. Like there's a kind of black identity club, basically. They're called affinity groups, isn't that?
That's what we call them.
Yeah.
It's BLACC.
And then
Black Leadership and Culture Club.
And then we have one for most of the
Asians and Hispanics. They just got them like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Do they have it for white kids too?
Well, there was a
White lives don't matter, huh?
there was a student in my grade actually who tried to start one with I think it was with a black teacher as a supervisor, a somewhat conservative leaning one. And from what I understand, they basically, he set up this club, and then the school said, no, you can't have that. They shut it down, and then that was that.
That's
so
amazing.
I have a Republicans club though, so
you
it's
do?
majority white. So the administration was actually pretty nice about letting me have that. They don't say no to me, so I don't know if they're scared of me or what, but because kids had tried to open those clubs and they didn't let them. Or maybe it's because I'm a girl, I don't know why. But so that is majority white, but no, having a white students
I really
club.
admire your courage.
Thank you.
That is that's amazing to me. So how do your parents feel about what you guys are going through? And are they like afraid you might get hurt, don't want you to do this, or do they support you in it?
My parents are definitely slightly afraid. They don't want me to say anything because, with like the college process and everything, especially the people who are making the decisions about whether you get in or not, they're probably pretty left-leaning. But my parents support me. My parents are also conservative, like Aiden's. My dad's a doctor, so we see Obamacare, we see immigration, we see all the negative things that come along with that firsthand. So as much as my parents agree with me, they also want me to like stay safe, and because Antifa, and there's literally very violent people out there who, and I can't defend myself, so.
No, they'll be afraid of you, believe me. So how about you? Your parents are concerned or worried, don't want you to do it?
Yeah, I mean, when I told them I was going to be on your show, they were a little bit saying, oh, you don't want to lose your job or whatever. So I think, they're pretty cautious in general, so that they're kind of afraid of committing yourself to saying like, this is who I am, this is what I believe.
But it's not even like crazy stuff that we're saying.
We don't support
just
anything that
America
wild.
First.
We just that's all
Trump's
our
agenda.
That's all our ideology.
And that's what our parents are scared for us to say.
Yeah,
amazing.
So it's like,
it's insane how how far left the discourse has moved.
I've been saying for years that white Americans need to speak up, not be afraid, let them call you racist, whatever they want, because if they can control you with words, then they can destroy the country. And you made the point that under the Great White Hope, people have more courage. Whites are now speaking up. Why do you think that is? Because you're absolutely right about it.
Well, because you're talking about these words that, like maybe, I'm not saying there's no place to use the word racist, but it's just been used so much to attack. Now Tucker Carlson's a white supremacist.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So when I think it's because the left has kind of overplayed their hand, so to speak, because they keep using these words, and at a certain point, like I remember, there were students that accused me. I said something very innocuous, and then I was accused of being a rape apologist or something like this. So at a certain point, these these terms just lose their meaning.
Yes.
And when you get called them so many times, it just starts to, you don't care anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I went on the podcast. I purposely made an effort not to really say the word white, not to go too racial. So like, maybe I could go on again and it wouldn't be too divisive. And I was still called a white supremacist. I was still called a Nazi. I was still called every name in the book. So it was like, oh, okay. It's like you might as well.
What's the point in playing their game, so to speak?
That's right.
Because you lose.
I totally agree.
So
100%.
yeah, and when you see these the principled conservatives like Jeff Flake or whatever, it's like they take a kind of pleasure in losing. They love to lose.
Yeah.
And we're kind of tired of losing. We're
love it.
tired of giving up so much ground to
Yeah.
the other side.
Are you guys considered alt-right?
I'm a huge fan of Ann Coulter, so I don't know where that would place me, but she's someone who I
Yeah,
align
me too.
with the most.
Yeah.
So I don't think she's necessarily alt-right. So now when someone calls you alt-right, like I get called alt-right all the time whenever I speak or I debate, because I literally say, hey, what about putting America first and not
Yeah.
Mexico,
That's right.
And I get called alt-right, I get called neo-Nazi, everything. So it's like, by their standards, what it means to be alt-right, like I guess I'm technically alt-right by their standards,
right.
but I don't really align with that kind of viewpoint.
You know that I'm Uncle Tom, right? A coon. But I don't care at all. I put my country first. I put what's right first. And they can just call me whatever they want. I don't care. But what I do want to know, what is the biggest thing your generation doesn't get about race?
Well, I think our generation, I think we understand it more than older people do. It's like we've been in a kind of like a pretty diverse environment our whole lives.
Right.
So I think we're more equipped to deal with, like, we understand how that affects politics, how that affects culture, society, all those things.
Now I think every school has every affinity group you could ever imagine, and it's true with public schools, independent schools, there's like coalitions between all the schools. So I think that it's a part of the school system now, it's a part of
Right.
just getting an education.
Yeah.
So I think every single kid is exposed to it, and I think like from that exposure, like where you go from there is kind of up to each individual kid.
So does it seem that that's helping, or are the races still more divided by coming together and being
Definitely divided.
Well,
divided, huh?
yeah, and I think that some students can get kind of, some students of European origin can get kind of beaten down by the rhetoric, and they do kind of submit. They do say, okay, I'll do what you say. But I think for some, they, and not necessarily saying, I don't like you because of who you are, but saying, I won't let you control what I say. I'm not going to let, like, you're going to have to respect that I exist, that I'm here, and that I have my opinions. And I think we would probably fall.
Is it
into
hard
that
being
camp.
white?
Well, I think by high school, by the time I got into high school, there was definitely a kind of stigma associated with that, because whites are the minority, right?
It's really close in number wise, looking at there's a lot of Asians at our school.
So does it feel hard being white? Do you ever wish I wasn't white?
Sometimes I think that, like, if I was black or if I was Hispanic, not so much Asian, but it'd be easier. Like, I'd be able to get away with saying things, that I can't necessarily. I mean, I kind of get that because I am a girl, I am a woman, so it's a lot easier to say things.
Right.
But I think that I kind of, in a way, feel bad for them because I think that they go through our school system, at least at our school, and they don't really learn how to interact with people in a way that's
Right.
not based on race, in a way that's
Yeah.
not, just talking to someone and listening to their ideas and being exposed to different ideas rather than, oh, she's white, whatever she says is internalized depression, and it's just like that kind of just stupid. And I
Yeah.
think that's the main problem.
So is it because whites are feeling guilty about the plight of minorities or people of color, whatever they call them? Do whites feel guilty about what they're having to go through?
I think that's what we're told. I would say that.
Well, because
yeah.
I think there's a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
Ultimately, because I felt white guilt before. I remember there were, earlier on, certainly before Trump in 2016, that I felt that I owed something to other people because of what my ancestors did or didn't do. But at a certain point, you kind of realize that okay, like everyone's done bad things more or less.
That's right.
And we didn't do any of those
That's
things.
right.
So you kind of say, I don't want to play by that game anymore. And you notice that a lot of times when you do concede something, because I noticed that whenever I would try to be, I guess, like an ally, I suppose, I would still find a lot of hostility.
Yes.
That I wasn't doing enough. And then
Yeah.
at a certain point, it's like, what else can I do? It seems that
They want blood.
I think being a different race other than white is like a benefit for every other type of person except for people who are white. But it's not, I mean, there's some benefits, I guess, to being white, as with every race. But I think like the college admissions process is a perfect example of that. Like, you can't really sit there and say that it's easier to be white applying to college. No, it's not. It's a lot
Right,
easier
I
to be a
know.
minority.
Yeah.
So, you see like in college, you see the videos of these, like white dudes standing up and they're like, hi, I understand that I come from privilege and that what I'm saying is internalized misogyny and white supremacy, so I apologize. And then they like sit down.
Oh, that's
They're like,
terrible.
done.
I hate it when I see
well,
that.
and it's like
I want to slap white people for doing that.
when
Would that be considered a hate crime?
Probably.
No, probably
not
not.
toward a white person, no.
when a shark or an alligator when they smell blood,
Right.
or when they sense it, because it's when I think a
Yeah.
lot of people they think, oh, if I capitulate, they'll be nice to me, but
Yeah.
it's weakness ultimately.
That's right. 100%.
And if you show weakness, then people will say, oh, I can get whatever I want out of this person.
Yeah.
This person will
That's right.
will give me whatever
And that's
I want.
what white people have done for the last however many 60 years. They have shown weakness, and that's why generation after generation after generation keep pushing them and intimidating them and accusing them, and it's not going to change until white folks stand up and say no more. That's your problem. I have truly, you guys are remarkable.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You give me hope, great white hope for this country. I'm telling you, I'm loving it seeing you guys standing up and not be afraid. Don't be afraid of being white. Don't be afraid of having your own opinion about things, and let them call you whatever they want, and put in America first. Put what's right first. I have truly enjoyed this, and for you, that's remarkable. I expect
you.
a man to stand up.